A gentleman was diagnosed with mesothelioma, and he had worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and he wanted to know, how did he get mesothelioma? Hi, I'm Joe Williams. I'm a mesothelioma trial attorney in New York City, and I want to share with you some experiences I had with a former client who worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Now, this gentleman, a very fine man with a wonderful wife and kids, who was absolutely distraught over his diagnosis. Now, this gentleman and his adult children, they really wanted to figure out all of the ways that he was exposed to asbestos. And that journey took us to the Brooklyn Navy Yard. He was a rigger at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and this is actually a good example of all the ways that workers at the yard were exposed to asbestos. Because this gentleman was working a crane and chain pulls and lifting large pieces of machinery and taking them onto U.S. naval vessels, battleships, aircraft carriers, giant Navy ships which were in dry dock and being worked on by hundreds, even thousands of workers at a time, by both Navy seamen who were present as well as civilian workers, also known as yardbirds, who were working to construct or repair these ships. Now, this rigger was lifting up the equipment and putting it on the ship. It was being installed by others. And when it was being installed, he was there putting the equipment into place while insulators were nearby, insulating pipes, insulating other pieces of equipment, and even starting to insulate some of this very equipment that the rigger was installing. That asbestos was in the air. It was being mixed. It was being applied. It was being breathed by all of the workers in these closed compartment spaces on the ship. This unfortunate gentleman was diagnosed with mesothelioma a few years back, some 50 years after his exposure. He didn't understand that, and I explained, as did his doctors, that mesothelioma has a latency period from 20 up to as much as 60 years from the time of exposure to the time of diagnosis. Asbestos causes mesothelioma, and it causes it many, many years later. And that's exactly what happened to this rigger who worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. Now, this is one example of many. As I said, there was thousands of workers who worked at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, all of whom were exposed to asbestos, and unfortunately, all of whom are at risk for mesothelioma. You have questions about mesothelioma and asbestos exposure. I'm Joe Williams. At our firm, we handle mesothelioma cases every day for victims of this terrible disease and for their families. Give us a call. We'll answer your questions. Thank you.